Hi, I'm Blair Imani.
And I'm Mychal Threets.
And you've tuned in to Thoughts About Feelings. And today our guest is Meena Harris.
Hi.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
We've got some thoughts about feelings. Think of the places we can go and the people we'll meet, the things that we'll see. What do you think? Are you feeling me? Thoughts about feelings.
Yeah, we're so excited. This is Thoughts About Feelings. So we talk about all sorts of things. We're hoping that this will be a safe space for all of our guests, old friends, new friends, talking about mental health and so much more. So we like to start our conversations with, how are you really?
Oh, just starting there, huh?
Right away.
Wow.
That's it.
Today has been a good day, and I am taking it day by day. Generally, I don't know if we really want to start off on this note, but if we're, really going deep into our thoughts about feelings, it's like a tough time. I am generally unwell, and I'm confused by people who are well, but I love that for them, and I would like if you have any suggestions for. It's it's a time, and so I am trying to, as I said, take it day by day. Lean into the things that make me feel good and not get kind of hung up on some of the big picture stuff that can get really overwhelming.
Yeah, sometimes it's good to zero in and focus on the things in your own orbit that you can control, whether it's just what you eat for lunch or, whether you have a sparkling or a still water, just really trying to distill those things and not try to overstimulate yourself, because it's really easy to get overstimulated. It's really easy to start spiraling, especially if, mental health can be difficult for you. And so to bring it up a little bit, we have library kid questions. Do you want to explain what a library kid question is, Mychal?
Yes, library kid questions. As you know, I'm a librarian. I deal with a lot of library kids and library grown-ups. They're the best people in the world. We like to ask people a library kid question, what's something they might ask you. And we think they would ask you, since you don't have just one job, just one title, how do you have so many jobs? I thought you could have only one job.
Not to start with an author pun, but I feel I have one job. I have one day-to-day job, but I feel like I have had a lot of chapters, and I'm sort of in a new chapter.
Would you say you also wear many hats?
I wear many hats today.
Not listeners,
I don't have a hat,
I'm wearing a hat,
yes,
which is why it's hilarious.
Visual. It's a great hat. Exactly. I wear many hats, and I am sort of in a period of, this new chapter of exploring my interests and my passions after having had a long experience in a very traditional, career and career path of one job that I realized I didn't really love, and that was not, my calling or what I wanted to be doing for the rest of my life if I were to think about that. So I feel lucky that I'm able to be in this sort of period of exploration and get to explore my passions and interests.
Isn't that a beautiful
through all
thing?
these jobs. It is. It's beautiful. I will say my daughter the other day asked me, Mommy, what's your hobby? And I was like, well, I was thinking about writing kids' books.
Yeah.
Or then I'm like, oh, no, did I turn my hobby into my job? I think I might have.
It's the millennial way.
Yeah,
It
that
happens
is
to
true.
the best
That
of
is so
us.
true. You can't shake that. I feel lucky to be able to sort of, kind of carve my own path. I'm obviously in media and entertainment, like the both of you, but to have the opportunity to sort of build my own thing. And it's been really fun so far.
So I don't know if you remember this, but you actually gave me my first brand partnership ever, back when I was
don't remember this, and I need to know.
I think I don't even know if it was a brand
that.
partnership or if you just sent me a phenomenal shirt, and I was like, this is a brand partnership.
Yeah.
I am now an influencer. But it was
Official.
really the blessing that I needed to be able to go forward back when I was monetizing my hobbies.
Full circle.
It really is. And so
I love that.
I think I got emotional one day and I sent Meena this whole long text message about it. But you really, and that's not the only time you've, helped encourage people to follow their passions and their visions. And so I'm curious to know, who was somebody in your life who mentored you, and why are you so, I don't know, why are you so great at mentoring people and inspiring folks?
Thank you. You're making me really feel good here. And by the way, I do have to say, this does feel like such a safe cozy space. It's so beautiful.
Shout out
I
to our
like,
team at Pixel Circus.
Yeah, I feel like I'm giving, I am blending in a little bit, but also on theme. So, really cool. These days, mentorship looks a lot different for me than I would say it did, kind of back to the point of having had a very traditional career and career path. Yeah. I would say, to answer this question today, my mentors honestly are my friends and a lot of, my peers, industry peers, people I have professional relationships with who have just been, generous with time and supportive without asking for, something in return. And it's interesting, I haven't been asked this question in a long time. I used to get it all the time. And it was such a big sort of thing that was suggested going to law school, coming out of law school, going to a law firm of like, you got to find your mentor, mentorship is really important. And I think that kind of, again, back to this earlier question, that being in such a traditional profession, there's just a different sort of structure around what mentorship, can look like. And we're all now in sort of, media, entertainment, these industries that are changing every day, which is fun and challenging, but it also means that, what it means to sort of be a mentor, a professional mentor, I think looks sort of different. It's something I think a lot about, and including, how do I give that back to other people? I do, I carry this like basic sensibility of like, if you have been given any sort of privilege or opportunity, like you pay it forward and be generous. And if there are ways to be kind and helpful to people, especially other people who inspire you or whose work you want to support, just, do that. And it's usually pretty easy to do. And it's something that I always think, like, on the one hand, I don't even remember the thing you're talking about, so it's sort of like just how
I'm mentoring all the time. I don't even remember every instance of mentorship.
It's a part of, but I think it is the point of, like, it's just kind of leading with, being sort of more generous-hearted. And I think we're in a time right now that feels like it's just a lot of, scarcity of community, of, and I think it's more important than ever that we think about, how can we just be kind of generous to those around us, whether in our neighborhood or in our professional circles or otherwise.
Have you heard of the landmark case of Brown versus Board of Education?
Of course.
Did you know that the organization that brought it to the highest court of the land, the Legal Defense Fund, aka LDF, is still around doing incredibly important work to protect our civil rights?
Actually, I did.
LDF is the country's first civil and human rights law firm that was founded by Thurgood Marshall. Right?
Exactly, and LDF has spent the last 85 years fighting to create an inclusive, just, and equitable multiracial democracy.
And on October 15th, LDF's president and director counsel, Janai Nelson, defended key protections of the Voting Rights Act at the Supreme Court in Louisiana versus Cali. This case is a culmination of a decade of organizing and thousands of hours of legal work, all to fight for fair representation for all voters.
This year alone, LDF filed multiple lawsuits challenging the Trump administration's actions and executive orders that threaten our civil rights.
And they do this through the combined power of litigation, research, organizing, advocacy, and narrative building that amplifies the voices and stories of Black people in all the communities we work with.
That's incredible. And listeners, if you believe in a democracy that's built for us, by us, now is the moment to stand with and support LDF's fight to shape an America that works for everyone. You can support LDF by donating at naacpldf.org/thoughtsaboutfeelings.
Donate today, and for a limited time only, your gifts will be matched, giving you double the impact. Well, thank you for that. And speaking of uplifting, speaking of feeling great, the Golden State Valkyries have made the playoffs.
Yes!
I'm a big fan of the Valkyries, of the WNBA, and I know you are too. How did you get involved with the Golden State Valkyries, and have you always been a fan of the WNBA and women's basketball?
So I feel like I have to be somewhat honest in that I'm not like new to it. To be clear,
a lot of people are new. A lot of people
great.
are brand new. They're like, women can also play basketball.
Well, that part,
I'm fascinated.
Yeah, right. It's like welcome. I was gonna say on the note of being phenomenal that I love how welcoming the WNBA is to new fans and the Valkyries. So that's very cool. But as
an OG though.
Well, yeah, I would not call myself a lifelong fan. And I would say that I kind of became a fan, and I came into this 5-ish years ago, and it was actually through a different sort of pathway of not necessarily just being a fan, but through activism. And, the WNBA has an incredible history of activism, and in particular, advocacy from Black women, ranging from, pay equity, right, reproductive rights. And I'm trying to remember sort of what the initial, so we had done a couple campaigns with WNBA Players Association, with individual players. 2021, the special election in the runoff in Georgia, Raphael Warnock, like that was a big, moment. We were involved in that campaign. So it was sort of through activism in some ways. But another way into this sort of very exciting moment in sports, which is undeniable, in women's sports, which is undeniable. And I want to be careful not to call it a moment, because it's not just a moment.
Yeah.
So I think some people are, finally waking up to what has already sort of been clear. But really having girls and having kids and daughters who are in sports. And so I am an investor in Bay FC, which is the Bay Area's new NWSL soccer team. And that was really just fun to be a part of, obviously just being from the Bay Area, and really proud for us to have that. And again, to the point of just like community and bringing people together, and us, I think, just as a society needing things to like root for, and seeing women at the top of their game, and Sunday, 4 p.m. games with like moms and kids. It's just so beautiful and wonderful. But also to see, what it means to my girls as, young, aspiring soccer players, and just knowing the power of, again, seeing incredibly powerful women doing incredibly powerful, cool things, like what that means to kids. And so just kind of from the parenting perspective too, it's something that I've really been invested in, literally and figuratively. And the Warriors, I'm Bay Area native, proud Bay Area native, Oakland native, and we've done a bunch of partnerships with the Warriors focused on, cultivating female fans. And so, yeah, it felt kind of like a natural, thing to be a part of. And they invited me to, be a part of supporting the team, the Valkyries Collective.
Yeah.
So it's been really, really exciting. And like, again, just despite how tough times can feel, being at those games, just like the energy and, like the visuals of not only the players just like on the court, but families and kids. And it's really, really cool.
Yeah, it's such infectious energy.
Yeah.
I love being there. Like, I mean, it is so cool. It's so cool for the Bay Area, but like you said, it's so cool for young girls, for women in general. But
I'm so proud.
Yeah.
I mean, it's especially for Oakland. I obviously, not to start like an Oakland.
No.
But, like, and not to be corny either. But if you told me whatever growing up, in Oakland when they played at the I'll let me not go there. But that we would have a WNBA team.
Yeah.
So again, back to the point, I didn't necessarily like follow the WNBA as a kid, but my girls do, and that's also so cool, right? Things that I realized I wasn't exposed to that could have been incredibly powerful for me, that I see that they get to benefit from and be a part of. It's so amazing. So they have like, oh, that's my favorite soccer player, and that's like, it's just incredible.
It sounds so cool. And I played sports when I was a kid. Unfortunately, I had that old exercise-induced asthma, so I didn't play for very long.
Same. Wait, what sport did you play?
I played softball.
Okay.
And so I was really good. I was really fast. But my thing is, like, I would outrun everybody and, like, do the bases.
Yeah.
And then have an asthma attack. So it was not the best.
Oh, no.
But I remember, like, feeling when I was a little girl, and this is, like, such patriarchy influencing things. But I remember when I was a little girl, like, okay, yes, girls, you can play sports, but it's not a grown-up job. Like, you can't do that. And I think how cool would it have been to, like, have been following people in college, like, people who are playing, continuing to play softball, continuing to play baseball as women, like, just would have been that encouragement. Or even just following other sports and activities. And I remember, like, trying to die on the hill of ballet is a sport when I was a little girl. All the time I'd be like, what sports do you do? I'm like, ballet. They're like, that's not a sport. Yes, it is. And it's like, it doesn't have a ball. Neither do other sports.
Yeah.
Track and field is a sport,
Well, even to this point, I'm seeing, again, this is not a new thing, but I'm seeing just sort of more dialogue and visibility around, like, cheerleading is a sport. It's very, it's acrobatics. It is, so things that previously were sort of denied that as, like, a serious sport or that status because maybe they were, seen as sort of a girl thing or right, non sort of competitive masculine
100%.
male thing.
And I just feel like it's really important. And I think it's also important. And I don't know if you were about to say this, Mychal, but I think it's important for men to see as well. To see like
Definitely.
a range of different people doing different physical activities, and that it being something that everybody can do, whether you're, non-binary, whether you're trans, whether you're a woman, whether you're a man, like all these different people being able to do what they love. And that also brings me to a question that I have. But Mychal, I want you to chime in.
Oh no, I think you hit my point on the head that I think I was going to say talk about is so important for young girls and women. But being at the games is so cool to see. Like I myself, I have a Caitlyn Chen jersey.
Yeah.
It's cool to see little boys wearing Kate Martin
Yes.
jerseys, wearing Veronica Burton jerseys, and just like jumping up for joy. And it's so very cool. And I don't want to steal your question, but I think what it makes me think of is you can't see if you're just listening, but we have Meena's books behind Meena, and I think that's where I first learned about you is at the library. And it's in this similar conversation where so often we would have Ambitious Girl on display at the library, and I'd always have library kids who would come into the library, and the boys were like, I can't check out that book. It's a girl. I'm not an ambitious girl. And I'd have conversations with them. I'm like, you can check it out because you can still be ambitious. Like the point of the book is like you're not too much. Yes, it's about a girl who thinks she's too much, but it's about so much more. Boys and girls can all learn from your book. So I think that's for me combining the library and also basketball, saying yes, this is all things that we can all benefit from one another.
Yeah. I want to come back to the sports thing because I want to say another thing too. But on that point, I think the message is also like, it doesn't have to be about you to enjoy it and to get value out of it, right? This idea that children's books, yes, can be a mirror, but they're also windows into other experiences. And, why shouldn't a little boy be able to read a book and be inspired by an ambitious girl or, a woman, right? And I'm now going to go back to the sports point on the same topic, which is one of my favorite stories is another parent who took her young son and had only up to this point taken him to Stanford women's basketball games. Wow. And they were going to go to the Stanford football game for the first time, and they were taking him. And it was something like he said, what's her name? About the players because they had helmets on. Like, as they were coming out, he's like, oh, what's her? Or, like, what did she do? He was like, oh, I thought all athletes were women. Right?
What a cool
but
mindset.
I think even beyond that, it's that, as I was saying, and I think from the perspective of parenting, that, this is how we raise whatever, non-toxic, terrible men, into good human beings and people who, right, are just like not even thinking about it in terms of the gender binary at all.
A lot of that has like broken my brain recently, like preparing for this baby.
Yeah.
I was just talking about that with Mychal, about how there's certain things, like I asked my husband, I was like, so are you going to watch the baby sometime so that way I can get my nails done? And he was like, do you mean parent our child that we have together so you can do activities that are not just watching the baby and or like, being with the baby? And I was like, oh, okay. I was like, I have a lot to reflect on. There's a lot of patriarchy coded in that. And I was just thinking about other things. I was like, are you gonna bathe the baby too? Because like apparently there's a whole bunch of like stereotypical gender norms that I have in the back of my head when it comes to parenting that are not true for me in my relationship and for like my future child. And it's like, oh wow. And I love seeing that when I see kids say things like, my favorite basketball player is Caitlin Clark, and it's a little boy who's saying that. And it's like, oh my gosh, that's allowed. That is allowed, But then it's also unlocking the part of you that realizes, oh, part of me didn't realize or didn't think it was.
Well, the reason why is because all it ever has been up until like yesterday was, men and men being athletes and men playing sports, men being president, right? It's no surprise if that's all you know, all you see. Once again, this goes back to the point of, the power of children's books and representation. But again, it doesn't just apply to the person you're reflecting back to necessarily, right? It's also about this just is.
Yeah.
I talk about this a lot, even just like the way I grew up in a house full of women, very strong women. I perceive them as, like they were like superheroes, and the idea of like a man running anything was very foreign to me until I, kind of got into the real world. So there's definitely, and it's really, as you become a parent, as you start to, in relationships, right? If you're dividing labor, there's so much more that you learn and you realize like, whoa, this is deep. But yeah, and that you have these moments of like, oh, wow, like I didn't even, because you, I'm sure, consider yourself woke and
And
very
a feminist.
aware of,
Are you kidding?
know,
They made an anti-woke documentary in France, and I was all over that thing. I
Yeah,
was like,
you
they're
know,
like, she is the
the
embodiment
face
of
of
woke,
woke.
you know? Yeah.
But even
That's my
still,
terrible French
it's
accent.
like-
I apologize, France.
What was that? What was that again? The accent?
I'm not doing it again.
You're like, oui. No, it's I think what and I know there's a whole thing, and I went through this too, but like not wanting unsolicited advice as you go into, you know,
Give it to me.
labor and everything else.
I'm actually really into like solicited advice. In August, I asked for my audience to give me solicited advice about my pregnancy. Yo, last I checked, it was 5,000 comments.
Oh,
It was
wow.
90 comments in the first 10 minutes. That's big for me. Okay.
Yeah.
And it was all really sensible stuff. I was expecting to like, pull up, a popcorn and be like, oh, these people are
Right.
ridiculous. And I'm like, oh, everybody's really thoughtful and intentional and empathetic and scientifically informed. So yeah, anyway, lay the solicited
Well, I'm
advice
just
on
gonna
me.
say that the point of with your partner, that you're asking these questions now, and he's like, hello, and it's great that you have someone that is kind of already, whatever, more progressive on these things, but just that having that conversation, I think, is really essential to the point of, or bringing this up, right, around like, okay, who's going to do what, like, how do we, in a way that obviously works for you and your communication style and your relationship, but that if you are not sort of actively talking about it, I think then those things do creep in, and then you realize it after the fact. Right. So it's great to hear that you're sort of already, thinking about this.
Oh
and-
yeah, I think we learned a lot
having that conversation.
after we got married because we were getting so bombarded with like gender standards and norms from our family members. Like the first holidays, like Thanksgiving and stuff after we got married, I was like, oh, why does everybody respect me more than now that I'm married? Like that's kind of gross. This is nice, but it's also gross. It's like privilege, but bad. Like when you like realize where it comes from,
Yeah.
but you're also like, this is nice. But talking about it is so important. And you talked a little bit about how you grew up. And so, being this is Thoughts About Feelings, and we have so many conversations about mental health, I'm wondering if mental health was like part of the conversation that you had when you were growing up. Like, what's your relationship to mental health now? And what was it like when you were growing up?
Yeah, one, I'll start with it's actually fairly new, a new relationship for me. I grew up in the 80s and 90s. I don't know if I'm making myself sound very old now. When this was just not something that was much talked about. And I think in particular, sort of like immigrant families of color, not to, stereotype, but it was not at all sort of a real dialogue. And back to your first question of how are you really? Like, do you really want to know the answer? I am now recognizing, after having, especially in the last 5 years in particular, having gone through like some very intense life experiences, ranging from, having kids to turning 40 to like presidential politics and everything else. It's been a really tough, if I'm being honest, like terrible last 5 years. And it really, and I think I want to be clear that I think all of us are, going through this in some way, right? Here we are again.
From like the
Very true.
pandemic to
Exactly.
like policy
and
changes.
That's exactly that
Yeah.
5-year window with the pandemic there too. But yeah, here we are again, second Trump administration wreaking havoc again. And so there's that. And then, just sort of the deeply personal stuff that, I think will take me like years to probably really process and work through. And it's also like, it's not like it ended. It is something that allowed me to really, sort of want to have a better relationship with considering my mental health. And it's something that I am on sort of this, new journey with, that I am curious about and am sort of actively considering. Even ranging from like, this is just kind of online stuff, but I feel like, online, everything that's marketed to me is like, you're in perimenopause. I'm like, is it anxiety or is it perimenopause or is it both? We'll never know. But it's like, that we don't know anything about like women's health. That's
Literally,
a whole
I'm like, is it pregnancy?
situation.
Is it ADHD? Is it hypertension?
What
Like,
is the illness?
Yeah.
But just stuff like that I'm like, oh yeah, maybe I am in perimenopause. But just being curious about hormones and other things that, yes, people are like building businesses around to sell things to you. And I got a PR package the other day that was like, your perimenopause prep kit. I'm like, girl, I did not. Who told you that I was? But I'm joking. Like I think that that's a separate conversation. But just that, you know, I think we're now in this era, you know, having much more honest conversations where people have much more access to information around seeking, you know, ways to help manage mental health issues or relating to other people's experiences. On the women's health stuff, you know, same thing. And I'm really grateful for that. And it's, you know, so needed. But it is kind of wild to say at the, you know, young age of, I'm going on 41 now, like, oh, this is kind of a new journey for me, you know? So
surprise, we're still living and learning and growing.
Exactly. And, you know, to the earlier question about how are you doing, like, just what are my own practices outside of, right, like therapy and other sort of formal things that help me to just kind of, you know, manage it, right? Like, I decided I could not do my New Year on January 1st. I just was not ready.
Yeah.
I tried again for the Lunar New Year, and I was like, oh, nope, still just not ready to move. Persian New Year, March 20th. Anyway, so I'm like, you know what, September 1st. I'm going to do September 1st. It feels natural with, like, the start of school and having young kids. Yeah. But just, like, little, you know, things like that. We talked about, like, having routines. I've been doing Pilates and just getting offline and, like, outside. I've been, like, golfing with friends. Yes. Like, you know, Sunday hair washing and doing new styles with my kids. Like, those sorts of, you know, rituals and routines. But yeah, anyway, I'm like rambling now, but it's something that I'm really enjoying also, like seeing the value of being more present with that and how important it is. And once again, it gives you such different perspective as a parent and how you can parent perhaps differently and think about having the opportunity to kind of, you know, do things a little bit better and not have your kids have to wait until they're, and not to say that that's the fault of parents, right? But just where we are sort of as a society, it's better.
I mean, both my parents work in mental health.
Oh, wow.
And so I had like all of the resources, like flow charts, discussion guides, like how are you really was like every day after school. They're like, oh, that sounds like you might be having an adjustment disorder. Like everything was super pathologized. So it turns out regardless of how your parents parent, you have some shit to work through.
Well, I was going to say the irony too, you know, my grandmother was a scientist. She studied hormones. I'm like, oh, I really wish I could talk. Now that I'm in perimenopause, I would love to talk to my grandma about, but even still, right? It was just, we talked about it in a very like scientific way that wasn't necessarily, so, but I'm grateful, I should say as well, that, you know, you folks like you, whether online through, you know, sort of what you're creating and sharing with the public, and you as well are really, you know, a part of making this more accessible and destigmatized and all those things in ways that, you know, I didn't have the benefit of as a young person or as somebody who could have benefited from it at that time. So thank you.
Yeah. No, thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. I'm so glad that we're having these conversations. I'm a person where I didn't grow up getting to have all these conversations. There weren't all these different perspectives about how do we deal with anxiety? How do we deal with panic? How do we deal with toxicity and worldwide turmoil? And I'm glad that we all have a chance to share our various perspective. It's an activist perspective, it's a librarian perspective, educator perspective, a legal perspective, or even you're a children's author perspective.
Yeah.
You have your next book coming up, Maya's Big Question, on I believe in March of 2026.
Yes.
Which is so exciting.
Right after yours, because what yours is February.
Yes.
Mine is February 2026.
I can't wait to read them to my baby.
Thank you, children's book author.
Spring. I'm so excited. I mean, I loved all of your books. This is book number 5 for kids now, right?
It's so crazy actually to hear someone say that out loud. Yeah.
You should say it out loud now.
My fifth book.
Wow. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's so huge. What do you hope readers get from your newest book? And I guess part B, which is also pretty heavy on that, is as a children's author, how does that impact your ability to have conversations about leadership and change making, which maybe goes into what your book is all about?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so I say that it's like wild to hear someone say out loud that it's my 5th book, and that when I wrote my first book, I was going to say when I set out on this journey, it was not a journey. I was not setting out on really anything but writing this one book that was both mission driven. It was about, at the time, and like back in my time when we were children's books, like, there was, as a new mom, I wasn't seeing on bookshelves books that reflected back, what I wanted my girls to, be reading in terms of just having Black girls as main characters, right? It was a time when there was just not as much of that. And it's amazing that in just 5 years, wow, right? Like how much progress we've made. And now it's like, it's not just a little Black girl, it's a librarian. We have so many different, right, just options in a way that wasn't necessarily the case 5 years ago. So that was my initial interest. And also it being this very personal sort of family project to honor my grandmother and a story that I was told and heard growing up, and to kind of pass it on to my own kids in her absence. And this latest book, interestingly, is sort of, it's almost like a return to that first one, and that it is similar messages around, tapping into your own power and understanding that you have power to affect change. And that may just be in your backyard, right? The first one was about, these kids seeing that they had an empty courtyard, and they're like, hey, why don't let's build a playground? And getting a tire from one neighbor and a slide from, donated. So this one, it's different, but it's really a similar theme around, also encouraging kids. I love the library kid question, and maybe I should ask you a question back, which is, this book, I think, is almost kind of taking it to the next step, which is basically getting kids to have more confidence in questioning the status quo, right? Which is, we know that kids are curious, and librarians and educators and parents, we encourage kids to be curious. But how do you also do that in such a way that's maybe more critical thinking, right? Or noticing where there's an omission, and so that's also, a key message that ties back to, you have the power to change something. If you think that there's an opportunity to do something differently, or for change, the world is malleable, and you have the opportunity to do that. So it's, I don't want to give away the plot too much. You're going to have to pre-order it. Always just, emphasizing the pre-orders. But it feels very relevant to this moment in a way that I had not planned, and that I could not have intended, in terms of just the political environment. And it's really gratifying to feel like, something that feels relatively small, or that, is sort of just for kids, but also it's such a formative, time, right? Yeah. Children's books are for 4 to 8 year olds, and there's so much that they can take from these messages. And it's so fun. Like, I don't want to be like, when you don't wait, just wait, these things are going to happen. But like, you get kids say the weirdest things, or they pick up on the weirdest, funniest things that you don't intend as an author necessarily, which is so fun. So with my first book, like, there's a potluck, and I have parents saying like, my kid is, kids are like food, but they're like, and they now want to, they're like the brownies or the lemonade, but it then led to the kid being like, I want to host a potluck at our house, just
and
things.
now that kid's gonna own a restaurant,
totally,
like,
or just love brownies, love to make brownies, like that's great for you.
That's their thing.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's what I just like. Those are the best parts of being an author. And so I'm really excited. It's actually I've had a bit of a break. I produced I was sort of like one of those COVID people that just like was creating stuff all day. And I had some time with this one, and it feels kind of like almost like a return to the first one, and kind of coming full circle in some ways, but then also, a new chapter. And also one thing that has been fun for me just in terms of evolving as an author, and I hope you're maybe no pressure, but thinking about writing, more books, is getting to really stretch myself creatively. I think that was the initial inspiration in many ways too. I mentioned that it was like, yes, mission driven and like a family project, but it was also, as my daughter asked, like, what's your hobby? It was sort of a creative outlet, that I was doing on the side while having a corporate job, and getting to, kind of be on this unexpected journey and to like create new characters and new worlds. Mrs. Claus is my favorite. I don't know if you're allowed to say they have a favorite book. It's like picking your favorite child. But like, that's such a fun example for me of like, I got to actually kind of extend beyond that initial, like, let's teach kids about sort of community organizing or activism or sort of these like feminist messages, and really kind of just get into the real like creative being an author. So I hope to do expand myself in more ways in that way.
Well, I hope to see Maya eventually become a children's cartoon series, so I hope it's in the works.
That's so nice of you.
We just want you to have
I'm
more.
like, should we trauma dump today? Because I don't know if you heard, but yeah, entertainment is it's
I
a
know.
time.
It's a little bit of a shit pile right now, but
yeah.
it'll rebound. It'll improve.
Yeah,
You know, from
yeah.
the 3-point line. It'll be great. I'm trying to throw sports in there.
Yeah, thank you. I got it.
We have hope. We have ambition.
Totally.
And
But I have to say, even on this, like, I think a way in which the last 5 years and I'm like the strikes and everything else that the people have lived through so many eras of stuff that I think old Meena would have been like, yeah, I gotta start like looking at how to, and I did that with my other books, but I'm like, I'm good with also this just living as a children's book.
And that's so beautiful.
And yeah, one of the things too that is different about this one from my earlier books is that I get to visit schools. So I had a lot of COVID books, and then I had one where I had like a brief opportunity to visit schools for the first time. But this one, I feel like I'm finally kind of like really experiencing like the true essence of being a kids book author and like getting to do school visits and things like that. So yeah, I'm just letting, Maya.
You're in your author era. Let's go.
Yeah, just kind of letting it flow and see where things take me.
That's so exciting to hear all their unhinged questions when you go to the classroom and them just raising their hands.
Oh, yeah.
Kindergartners not knowing what a question is and just telling you their favorite food before telling you what they thought about your book.
Yeah, or like 5 in a row being like, what's your favorite food again? I'm like, girl, I've gone through the whole of sushi. Like, let's eat it. It's really cute.
Yes.
But also we kids say the darndest things. Like, they're so insightful and they're so, and with my A is for Ambitious book, which was the like sequel to this one that was more kind of like ABC vocabulary, that one was so fun. As I mentioned, I got to do like a brief stint going to schools where one you could do sort of like a call and response thing, and this meant like auditoriums of kids were just like screaming. So I finally learned that I had to like tell the school ahead of time, like it can get rowdy, maybe like make sure we schedule it at a time where they're not like going back to class. They're like, ambitious! But what I would do is I'd ask them like, what does that mean to you? You ask me like, what does phenomenal mean? And it's like words can have different meaning depending on the context or the day, and like, what does it mean to you? So anyway, but some of the responses to that, it was just so beautiful, and I'm like, yes, this is why I do this, and it's been really gratifying.
Thank you for joining us again. Hopefully you're joining us again, or maybe for the first time for Thoughts About Feelings. Thank you, Meena Harris, for joining us in this conversation. We always love creating a safe space, and we also like trying to recommend some books, and we thought we may as well recommend Meena Harris's books. So, of course, if you don't know the titles, they are Kamala and Maya's Big Idea, Ambitious Girl, The Truth About Mrs. Claus. Everyone wants to know the truth about Mrs. Claus. A is
Do you know her name, Mychal? Do you even know
I
her
don't
name?
know her name.
Well, you gotta read the book.
I need to read it again. It's been too long. A is for Ambitious, and the newest book, Maya's Big Question, which you need to pre-order as soon as you possibly can.
Try to pre-order it from an indie bookstore, maybe a woman-owned or a Black-owned business. Thank you so much for tuning in to Thoughts About Feelings. Thank you so much, Meena Harris, for joining us.
Thank you.
And make sure you subscribe. You can check out this full video on YouTube, and you can check us out on Instagram. Make sure to follow Meena and all of her amazing work. Again, follow Mychal for some library joy.
And pre-order Mychal's book too.
Yes,
February.
100.
What's the pub date?
February 26th.
February 3rd, 2026.
Yes. And if you want to get smarter in seconds, you can check out me on social media.
Please.
We've got some thoughts about feelings. Think of the places we can go and the people we'll meet, the things that we'll see. What do you think? Are you feeling me? Thoughts about feelings. All the ideas we can share with the fabulous friends and Mychal and Blair. We'll think about our feelings everywhere with thoughts about feelings. Thoughts about feelings.